Always true.
Kenya is often seen as East Africa's anchor state and a nation once hailed a model of democratic stability.
I assume as President of Kenya.
3 years ago, President William Ruto rose to power on a wave of hope, calling himself a hustler, vowing to lift up ordinary Kenyans and unify a divided country. Today, that optimism has given way to outrage. Following a series of nationwide protests, critics accuse his government of meeting dissent with force, not dialogue. Dozens of people were killed in the latest crackdown. Human rights groups report abductions, disappearances, and a culture of impunity within the security forces. At the same time, the economy, though growing on paper, remains out of reach for millions of Kenyans struggling with inflation, high taxation, and widespread corruption. And across the region, Kenya faces accusations of overreach from its alleged involvement in Sudan's war to its leadership role in Haiti's troubled intervention. So where does that leave Ruto's promise of transformation and Kenya's standing as a solid democracy in East Africa? Kenyan President William Ruto talks to Al Jazeera. William Ruto, President of Kenya, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Now, the last time I spoke to you on this programme was just a couple of weeks after you assumed office. That was 3 years ago. A wave of enthusiasm from Kenyans with your election. You said you were going to unify the country. You were a consensus builder. Now, I look at the headlines now. I've seen some headlines saying you're the most unpopular president in Kenya. To be fair, I've not found polls to back that up. But if I do look at the polls, your popularity has slumped. Why?
It's the nature of politics. When you get into office, there is stuff to be done. You know, people's expectations are high. Many people expect things to happen immediately. But it takes time to fix up stuff. If you look at the 3 years I've been in office, I did make commitments to the people of Kenya, huge commitments, many pledges. And it is the basis upon which the expectations of the people of Kenya have been very high. Have I met those expectations? I can confidently tell you that on a scale of 1 to 10, I have done 8. And I've done 8, let me just give you a rundown of 3 or 4 or 5 issues. Number one, I have fixed the economy. Kenya is now listed as the 6th largest economy in Africa because of the steps I have taken. And our stock exchange was the best, voted the best stock exchange in Africa. So we have fixed the economy. Number two, we have fixed agriculture. Today, we have increased the production of maize by 50% from 44 million bags every year to now close to 70 million bags last year. We have reformed the sugar sector. We are well on the way to being self-sufficient in sugar. Number three, we have fixed the education system. The education system was in shambles. I've hired 100,000 more teachers, built 23,000 more classrooms, and rolled out a new student funding model that now has made all our universities sustainable. Number four, I did promise that I would fix the health sector. We had 8 million people on social health insurance. Today we have 27.2 million people. We have improved services in hospitals. We are getting more medicine to hospital. We are getting more workers to hospital. We are getting more equipment to hospitals. And finally, the big elephant of unemployment. You know, many young people voted for me because unemployment has never been fixed in Kenya. And for decades, the biggest problem we have is 5% of our population have no jobs. And as a result, we have millions of young people that get out of college, school, and universities that have no jobs. What have I done? 4 things. Number one, I rolled out the largest infrastructure development in Kenya, targeting housing. We're now building 230,000 houses, hiring 600,000 young people, on to 1 million young people next year. We've rolled out program on digital jobs, expanding our fiber optic connectivity around the country, setting up ICT hubs, what we call Jazeera centers, business process outsourcing. Today we are hiring 180,000 young people in our digital job ecosystem. And number 3, export of labor. We have signed up bilateral labor agreements with many countries, Germany, Austria, this great country, Qatar, UAE, Saudi. And today, as I talk to you, 3 years on, 430,000 Kenyans are working outside Kenya because of the plan I've put in place.
You have presented a very comprehensive picture of what you say are your achievements. You talked a lot there about young people.
Correct.
But the young people don't all seem to share that rosy assessment of where things are. You've mentioned protests about food prices in 2023. There were protests again, large protests in 2024 and again this summer in 2025. Those protests in June spread, met with a most violent crackdown. 65 people died in the clashes. Was that mishandled?
There are many aspects of that protest. There are people who genuinely are there to express their opinions, different opinions, but there are also criminal elements, people who come to burn down buildings, destroy properties, steal from all manner of places, supermarkets, and many of those. And the public itself, by the way, the public went up in arms because they said, these are not protests, this is looting, this is criminality. And we have had to balance, the police have had to balance between dealing with violent criminals on one end and also managing protests.
You didn't leave it to the police force, did you? You got directly involved. You told at one point police to shoot protesters in the legs. Surely live fire is not something that should be used in protests. Do you regret those comments?
I don't regret those comments at all, because the law allows the police to use force when other people's lives are in danger.
Surely there are ways of doing that without using live ammunition.
That is according to you. I think the police know what they need to do. And the police, by the way, understand that it is within their purview. That is why when I came into office, I ensured that the police was independent. The police carried out their responsibilities independently.
Well, you say independent. You're telling the police to shoot protesters in the legs. That sounds like you're ordering the police.
No, there is nowhere in the law that allows me to order the police.
The oldest newspaper in Kenya, The Standard, had on its front page Rogue Ruto. And you stopped live media coverage, or tried to, of these protests. Kenya's known for its freedom of media. It's one of the great beacons of free media in Kenya. People I've spoken to, young Kenyans, say they are worried now about censorship in your country.
I don't think so. I mean, you yourself just said tried, because it never happened. I mean, media is independent in Kenya. They write all manner of stuff. I think what you've just said, rogue, is one of the mildest. They say all manner of things about me. They say all manner of things about other people. I don't agree with what they write. I don't agree with what they say. But they have the right to say it, whichever way they want. They are also free to lie and to churn out falsehood. I mean, it's up to their conscience to write the right thing. But the people of Kenya ultimately will make an assessment of who has exceeded, who has not, who has done the right thing, who has not.
Let's look at some of the grievances of the protesters. This latest protest followed the death of a blogger who was a teacher who died in police custody. Initially the police said he'd hit his head on a cell wall. I mean, it was unacceptable for someone to die in police custody. It was unacceptable to have a cover-up, was it not?
That's correct. And that is why the police who are involved in that particular incident today are behind bars.
But is there a wider issue of police brutality in Kenya?
There is, we have a police force of 110,000. You will not miss elements within the police who are rogue. And as and when we identify the rogue ones, we deal with them. Like in this particular case, When it was discovered that what they told the country was not right, the correct investigations were done, and those who are involved have been brought to book. So we will continue to make sure that the police, of course, majority of the police, know what they are doing.
The other thing the protesters talk about is what human rights groups call enforced disappearances. 2024, it's reported more than 80 people, critics of the government, disappeared. You've got them?
I can tell you, none of those people. I have told them. I have told people who claim that so-and-so has disappeared to step forward and tell the country who are these, when were they abducted, and many of the stories that you hear are people who when you tell them to come out, they don't. They just want to make general statements. And I'm telling you, we are coming from a dangerous background where, forget about people disappearing, where bodies were recovered from all manner of places in the past. Today, there are no incidences of Kenyans that are executed. I committed to the country that I would stop it, and I did.
The other thing they complain about, the protesters, is corruption. What are you doing?
Absolutely everything. I did sign the law that prohibits public officers to participate in doing business with government, what we call the Conflict of Interest Bill. Now it is law. I did sign this into law 3 months ago. We have deployed additional resources to the Anti-Corruption Agency. We have deployed additional resources to the Director of Public Prosecution. We have hired more judges. I think I have hired the most judges than any president in 3 years to make sure that the criminal justice system, the judiciary, is properly enabled to deal with all manner of issues, especially corruption.
Now, the protesters are all young. They're the Gen Z. They are the people who led were the engine of your campaign. And you've lost a lot of those people who were fighting for you and believed you were the man to deliver change. Can you regain their trust, do you think?
They have since discovered that every commitment I made, including how to empower the young people, from education to creating jobs, to making sure that there is health, to making sure that we have food, I have kept my commitment. And the entire country today, many people will tell you, the debate is no longer whether William Ruto has delivered. That debate is closed.
Mr. President, I accept what you're saying, but it doesn't match the polling of Kenyans. A recent poll said 62% of Kenyans feel the country is heading in the wrong direction.
Those are polls that, they are different polls by different pollsters. You yourself have said that you do not have the backing of any reasonable objective poll on these subjects. I will tell you, in the last election, the polls showed that I was never going to win the election. I won. So there is a world of a difference between what you see and what you get.
We talked about the economy, and that's one of the reasons protesters are unhappy, but certainly the official figures show that there is now sustained economic growth. You are here in Doha, where there's an important meeting that's been taking place about trying to reduce poverty and inequality. Do you feel that much has been achieved here?
Yes, I think the international solidarity around matters development, social development, education, health, social protection. You know, these are critical elements of the social fabric of society. It is unfortunate that we are holding this conference 30 years after the first one. I believe that I think we dropped the ball globally. We should have been on top of this. Of course, so much has happened in 30 years. The world is a lot different from what it was then. But that does not take away the fact that we need to do more. We need to be better. We need international solidarity around development, around the social issues. And that is why the focus of this summit was on matters to do with poverty, creating jobs, education, health. And I am very confident, and we have a very good account, especially those of us from the Global South, and I speak for Kenya. What it was then and what it is now are a world apart.
Let's look slightly beyond Kenya to the region around Kenya. And perhaps the reason people are worried about the protests in Kenya is because the picture of democracy in East Africa doesn't look particularly good. We have recent elections in Tanzania, your neighbour. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, the winner, declared 97% support. That's like North Korea. Is there still democracy in Tanzania?
It's not for me to judge Tanzania. It is...
It seems a bit fishy, 97%, doesn't it?
Well, in a democracy, for example, in Kenya, you can never get 96%.
So it's not a democracy anymore then?
That is you saying. Every country have a way of them doing their stuff. But I think the primary thing is democracy is the best governance system. It's not tidy always. It is not always easy, you know, because there are all manner of moving parts. But I think we must work together to ensure that we protect democracy.
So look at one of your other neighbours, Uganda.
You know? So I think we should stick to democracy, and we must always give ourselves the opportunity to listen to the alternative view, to look at the alternative without injecting violence into the equation.
So look at one of your other neighbours,
Yes.
Uganda. Elections coming up very soon. President Museveni has been there for nearly 4 decades. And there were real questions about whether there were free and fair elections last time. His opponent, Bobby Wine, was under effective house arrest. How worried are you about those elections and whether they're going to be free and fair? Because this affects the climate of the whole region, does it not?
I attended President Museveni's swearing in last election, and I think he got 57% of the vote. He didn't get 90. So I think there is room for us to work on democracy is work in progress, and I think it spans different, different stages. There are countries like Kenya that are way ahead. There are others that are catching up. There are others that are still not yet started, and we see it changing everywhere. We see, for example, in the West, people moving more right, others moving in the left, and everything in between. So there is a dynamic globally that is changing, and society is responding to different characters. Who expected, for example, that we would have the kind of situation we had in the U.S. In the previous election? Nobody expected that Congress would be attacked, that Capitol Hill would be attacked. That looked like far-fetched. Today, that's the world we live in. I mean, there is all manner of issues coming up. And we need to, as leaders, we need to balance, we need to look at it and see how we can.
I want to raise some more of those issues on the African continent, moving to the Democratic Republic of Congo. You mentioned the US. President Trump claims it was one of the 8 wars he's ended in 8 months. It's not over, though, is it? There was a deal, and it's not really gone any further. How worried are you that that is not actually an end to the conflict?
There is a good attempt, both by regional countries like East African Community, which I chair, and SADC. There is a very good progress that has been made under the leadership of the US, Qatar, and other partners. And at least there is progress. As to whether the war has ended, it has not. But there is demonstrable progress towards resolving that issue. And so is the case in Somalia, and so is the case in Sudan, and all the other hotspots in our continent.
And of course, the effects of the war in DRC are felt around the region and in Kenya, and you also have refugees from other countries, and yet the US has cut its humanitarian funding. The US and other countries have cut their funding to the United Nations. How is that affecting your efforts to help refugees who are sheltering in Kenya? There have even been some reports that in some of the camps, some people at some points have been close to starvation.
Well, there is serious, I must admit, there is a serious effect on the cutback by countries on funding the UN and UN operations that is affecting the global community, from health to refugees to peacekeeping efforts in Somalia, you know, the refugee situation in Kenya, the peace situation in DRC. There is real effect. And this is not the time to recede on international solidarity, as is happening.
Well, so would you like the US to think again, particularly with regard to Kenya? You're a close ally. Would you like more support from the US administration?
I think the US should reassess. It's not for me to decide for the US, I think, but it is for us to urge the US and the international community to think about international solidarity, being able to be there for the refugees, being there for the people who are at war, being there for the children who are affected by all these wars, from DRC to Somalia to Gaza to Ukraine and all the other places. So I think there is merit in the international community, the United States and all the other partners, to work together and to look at it in a much more positive way, that these are wars that are affecting humanity. These are wars that could be dealt with if there was greater, not less, international solidarity. And therefore, that would be very instructive and useful if there was a better thinking, a different way of approaching this. I think cutting funding abruptly does not give the right signals to international solidarity.
The most deadly war right now on the continent is the war in Sudan, and you know that the Sudanese army claim that your country is supporting the other side, the Rapid Support Forces. I mean, you had a meeting in February with the RSF and some of its allies. They signed a declaration to create a parallel government. The RSF recently took Al-Fasher in Darfur in Western Sudan, and the UN says there were summary executions, there were murders, there were rapes. Are you worried Kenya's going to be seen to be on the wrong side of history here?
Not at all. Kenya is a great democratic country. We are the only place in East and Central Africa where people can come and meet freely from every part of the world. And the meeting that was there in Kenya was a meeting of the civil society, meeting of church groups, meeting of Muslim leaders, meeting of women. And they were having a conversation about their country in Sudan. Such meetings have been held in Tripoli, such meetings have been held in Addis.
But there are also allegations that you're involved in getting arms to the RSF. The Sudanese army says you're involved with the UAE and you're shipping arms to them.
That is absolutely false. I can tell you for a fact that Kenya, being a democratic country, we're often accused. DRC accused us, or you were in, there were people meeting in Nairobi. There are people meeting in Nairobi. Sometimes I don't even know they are meeting in Nairobi, because we are a free and democratic country. We do not ban people from coming to Nairobi. We just deal with criminals. But people who are chasing civil liberties, people who are looking for space to express themselves. We have close to 1,000 journalists in Nairobi, including Al Jazeera, right? So that's the only place people can find space to speak about their issues. And to Sudan, I hold the position that both RSF and SAF are cut from the same cloth. They are a product of an overthrow of a people's government. And therefore, you cannot say anything different between SAF and RSF. And by the way, my position is that these two generals have no solution for Sudan, because both of them believe in solving a problem using military means, which is not a security problem. This is a governance problem.
Mr. President, we focused on what's been going on the continent in this interview, but it would be wrong, I think, for me not to divert to another part of the world where Kenya got involved, took, I think, quite a brave decision to get involved in Haiti, where the gangs are out of control, and despite your involvement, really, nothing has changed. What went wrong there? Did you not get enough support from other countries, particularly the US and Canada?
To say nothing has changed is not correct. I think if you speak to the Haitian people, if you speak to the government in Haiti, they will tell you many significant things have happened. Today, their port city is working. It was not working. Today, many schools have opened. They were closed. Today, the palace was not accessible. They operate from the palace. The police academy had been taken over by gangs. Today, they are training police in that academy. So there is demonstrable progress. Have we done everything that we should? No.
Did you have everything you needed?
We did not have everything we needed. And that's the point. We didn't get the kind of support that we thought we would get, that we were promised. And that is why I did raise this matter at the UN. I did write to the chairperson of the UN. And I did make my position very clear that unless we demonstrate international solidarity, provide the resources, provide the force multipliers, provide the equipment and vehicles, and make sure that there are enough boots on the ground, we wouldn't be able to solve this problem. I had a meeting with the president of Haiti, who was present here in Qatar, and we discussed an array of things. I spoke to the commander in Haiti, and he's very upbeat. We are, however, waiting to see the next steps.
Mr. President, you've now been in power for 3 years. We've talked about the protests, we've talked about the police response. The next election's less than 2 years away in 2027. Is democracy in Kenya safe in your hands?
Absolutely. Democracy in Kenya is not about a person. It's not about the president. It's about the people. The people of Kenya are Democrats. Their DNA is democratic. And therefore, not the president, not anybody can stop Kenya from being a democratic country.
William Ruto, President of Kenya, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much.